Hi everyone, I'm Marcus Grimm, and today we're talking about modernizing MSPE generation in medical schools. As often, I'm joined today by Santhosh Cherian, Medtrics CEO, an expert in medical education solutions, and today we're going to be specifically talking about a solution for MSPE automation. We know many of you deans, administrators, and executives, you're grappling with how to efficiently produce those medical student performance evaluation letters, those vital MSPEs. These letters are mission critical for every medical student's residency application, yet the process can be painfully manual and error prone. Well, today, Tosh is going to talk to us about why that doesn't have to be the case anymore. Tosh, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Marcus, for having me on. I'm excited to dive into the challenges that schools face with MSPE creation, and more importantly, how they can solve them.
Terrific. Now, for those familiar, let's clarify. We talk about these MSPE letters. Commonly, we call them the Dean's Letter, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're designed to present an objective summary of the student's academic performance. This includes their clinical evaluations, their grades, noteworthy characteristics, and residency program directors rely on these letters when they select their candidates. So any mistakes or inconsistencies, or even if the letter is too difficult to understand, can really cost your student an interview. And these days, MSPE letters weigh a lot when the decision-making process, since the USMLE scores and the COMLEX scores are now pass-fail.
This is often where schools run into trouble, right? Could you describe some of the typical pain points?
Absolutely. First and foremost is the data fragmentation. Information about a student is collected across multiple software systems or spreadsheets during their 4 years at that school. So for example, in their first year, they may be collecting various preclinical grades in one software system. They may be collecting clinical grades in another software system. And there's literally a lot of copying and pasting that happens when the MSPE is created. For example, we have to include comments from every single or clerkship that the student completed. And they're often copying and pasting these comments for hundreds of students from one document to the other, or one software system into a Word document. And this can really take an emotional toll on the administrators. One, there is a lot of stress associated with getting these things right. And then there's also a lot of guilt if something goes wrong. These students work their entire lives to get to that point, and this letter means a lot to their future career.
Yeah, let's talk about that emotional toll for a moment. You know, when we're in business or healthcare, everyone today talks about the ROI in terms of financial savings, but that's a lot of stress on the staff. That it sounds really critical.
Absolutely. From our conversations with many administrators, the MSPE process is usually one of the most stressful periods of their academic year. And the reason why is because they're expected to deliver these perfect letters, and they have to pull this data from several sources, and many of them are not data analysts or data experts, and they are typically there to take care of the students' needs and help them make better decisions. But during this MSPE season, they have to become data analysts and pull all this information together and make sure they're not making any mistakes when they ship these letters out to the ERAS platform.
So it's not only just an efficiency or a cost play, it's also about that staff well-being and refocusing on what they really want to do, which is student support, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. There's opportunity costs associated with the amount of time that's lost in coaching and mentoring the students to make better decisions for their career. And then there's also the indirect costs associated with their mental health and well-being. And this can eventually lead to staff turnover. So it's important that the organization is taking care of these individuals who are putting these hundreds of letters together each year.
So we talk about that obviously the emotional impact of the MSPE process, and we can find ways to improve that. But for those who are looking at, pure ROI numbers, if you find ways to automate this MSPE process, I've seen some figures that you presented representing up to an 80% time savings in MSPE production. How does that translate in financial terms?
It all depends on how much automation the school already has. Some schools are doing everything manually. Some schools have some automation built in. So if you look at a school that doesn't have a lot of automation, imagine you have a large school with several hundred students, and you have 3 staff members that are dedicating 6 to 8 months of putting these letters together. That's a total of about 1,000 hours they're spending per year. And if you roughly calculate about $40 an hour, that's around $38,000 in labor. By automating this process, schools can cut out about 80% of that workload. even after you factor in the cost associated with a Medtrics MSPE module license and calculating in the number of hours training and implementing a new process, the schools are often saving money even in the first year of implementing Medtrics. And every year after that, when they continue to use this new process, they're saving more and more because it becomes a streamlined process that they can repeat every year. If they ever have new staff members join the team, it's easy to get them up and running into this new process.
It sounds really compelling. And of course, whenever we talk about ROI and automation, the biggest benefits seem to come for the largest schools, for the largest programs. How does this scale down though? Well, what about smaller schools? Do they still gain?
Yeah, absolutely. Because when it comes to those smaller schools, they often have less staff members. And this means those staff members need to be doing the important work of helping the students make the decisions to get into residency programs that they want to get into. And even more importantly is helping them make the right decisions. If they don't have enough coaching to make those decisions, they may end up choosing the wrong specialty or even applying for something that they don't get an interview for.
Well, we know there are solutions out there for general evaluation management, but not all focus on this component, the MSPE generation. Can you speak generally about what's out there and how a specialized MSPE module stands out?
Yeah, Medtrics MSPE module is something that we built from the ground up in partnership with multiple medical schools. And while there are a lot of tools out there that can collect and aggregate information for different parts of the academic journey, one of the unique areas that we focus on is trying to centralize the entire academic journey in one platform. And then specifically for the MSPE, if a school doesn't want to change other processes, we have created a way for them to import data in bulk and simply generate the charts, generate the letters, and put it all together, and even have a review process approval between the different decision makers. So like a dean can go in there, review it, sign off on it. And if you want to send it out to as a student to draft it, you can send it out to them and they can see it in an email. So all of that process is managed in one platform. We're making it easy for the administrators to go from the beginning of the process and go to the end when they get a PDF that they can upload to the AAMC ERAS platform.
So that's really interesting. You're going really far. When I think about, MSPE, obviously data collection is a big part of it, right? Basic data collection. But when you talk here about the approvals and the workflows, you're truly orchestrating the entire MSPE process, right?
Exactly. It's not simply about generating the letters. It's coordinating the entire team that needs to get this done. Take Tracy, who may be a student affairs administrator. She's juggling 300 plus letters, tying all these data together for each student across their 4 years of training. This includes those clerkships, faculty comments, grades, and then she's double checking everything and making sure that each line is accurate, each number that's in there is accurate, each chart is accurate. With automation, she can focus on the quality of the letter, but then also coordinating with the different individuals in her department to quality check it. So for example, she can speak to her dean and make sure the dean has enough resources to review everything, or if there's specific letters that the dean should focus on more, she can identify those. So automation helps Tracy move from a data wrangler to a student advisor and mentor.
That's fascinating, and I love the term data wrangler. I don't think anybody would like that as a job title, and what they do want to do is they want to do mentorship and they want to do support. Okay, Tosh, automated MSPE generation, it sounds great, but let's be honest, we always get so excited about the new and how wonderful the world will be and how bad the old process was, but there's pain in change, right? And one of the things that we always like to talk about is at Medtrics, your team doesn't just sell the software, you literally manage the project, so you help schools go from the way it was to the way it is. How's that look from a practical standpoint?
Yeah, that's an important point. Change management is essentially people management. And when you have a complex process like MSPE, you have to go through a step-by-step approach to transitioning from your existing process to the new process. And at Medtrics, we always like to emphasize our PPP method, which is the People, Process, Platform method. We like to bring all the people involved with the process together. So we ask the school to put together a committee, and then we put a small team together with a project manager. Then we get together, review the existing process, every single thing that goes into your current MSPE letter and where the data is coming from. And then we look at our platform and decide, how do you want to transition that process into Medtrics? And once we determine that implementation plan, we have a series of weekly meetings we have with you. It's about 3 months. And each week we are going into specific areas of the process and helping you redesign it in the metrics method. The important thing to highlight there is we take lead on this, and we have a project manager, a project management tool that we run these projects for you. And all we ask is for time and the right people to be in those meetings to get this done.
What I think sounds really powerful about that is obviously whenever you have a rigorous project management process, that onboarding time gets drastically reduced. It means the learning curve also gets reduced. But as you've been sharing from the beginning, this is high stakes work. It's very, very emotional. So the teams that you're working with, they feel supported, not just technically, but emotionally.
Exactly. When it goes through these transitions, there is still that level of anxiety. I have to get these letters done by a certain day. And what if something goes wrong? Can we deliver it? Especially since we're doing something new. And that's where our team always reassures the institution, no matter what, we're going to get you these letters before that date. We're going to be with you to get you those letters. If something goes wrong and we need to do something for you to get those letters done, we will. Because there are always unknowns when you transition processes. And there may be information, for example, that needs to be extracted from other platforms. And throughout this entire process, we don't stop until the letters are generated and you have a process that you can repeat next year.
Outstanding. So we've talked about a lot in this episode, and this has been so much fun. It always is. If you had to sum up for a busy dean or an executive who only has 5 minutes, what would you say?
MSPE letters are the most important letters that the students have coming out of their school. It helps them get into residency program and also highlights their strength so they stand out among other applicants. Schools and decision makers need to be aware how stressful it is for your administrators to put these letters together and how much pain they're going through to make sure they're perfect. If you support them and giving them tools that allows them to do this better, they can spend less time crafting the perfect letters and moving data and more time helping your students make decisions that impact the rest of their lives.
It's very well said. Let me ask you this question. One of the challenges always with covering metrics is just the fact that your team responds so quickly to changes in the marketplace. Where do you see MSPEs going in the next few years?
Yeah, the MSPE module is one of the areas that we're investing more time and energy into improving because we want it to be more and more efficient. For example, last year we implemented a way to streamline the revisions or cleanup of typos in preceptor comments that came in using AI. We're continuing to invest in AI to see how that can help the administrators do less with data cleanup and more time with decisions and supporting the students.
Outstanding. This has been incredibly insightful, Tosh. Deans and executives listening can appreciate how transformative an automated MSPE platform can be. The stories from Medtrics customers about this new module are just great. It not only delivers that strong ROI, but it also alleviates that emotional burden on staff that we've been talking about. Thank you so much for sharing these insights.
Absolutely. Great speaking with you, Marcus.
Today we've been talking with Santhosh Cherian, CEO of Medtrics, all about the Medtrics MSPE module, one of several available from Medtrics. Obviously, you can learn more at medtricslab.com. Medtrics, practice medicine, not software. For Tosh and everyone else on the Medtrics team, I'm Marcus Graham.